Thank you very much. I live in LA half the time, and my family and I spend the other half of the time in Hawaii. So whenever I tell people from Hawaii I'm coming to Minnesota, you know what they say, right? Are you going to the Spam Factory? Seriously, that's true. And I know what you're thinking. It's a little awkward. I see you looking up there. You saw the video. Well, we saw two of the producers before the movie, and one was strikingly good looking. And the other, let's be honest, is a little weird looking. And you're thinking, how did we get the good looking guy? Excuse me, sir, when you laugh that hard, you hurt my feelings, okay? It's a joke, but that kind of hurt. Someone's throwing candy at me. And I don't know if you can shut this mic off, but we're going to get some feedback. I apologize. Or I could just shut this mic off. When Eduardo and I, with the success of Bella, our goal was to know the name of one child, and now we know of over. You want me to shut this one off? So you're both on? There we go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Is that good? Yeah. When Eduardo and I, with Bella, how many of you have seen Bella? Okay, I have 7 kids. I need more of you to see Bella, but our goal is to know the name of one baby that was saved. And every week we receive emails, texts, and letters from women who were scheduled to have an abortion and saw Bella and chose life. And so we started talking, and do you guys hear that feedback? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just going to shut this off. Is that okay? There we go. Is that better? Mm-hmm. Can you guys hear me now? So we sat down and we got together and we said, what if our goal was to produce a film that transcended all of history and all of time to communicate the incomparable worth of the human person? And we found someone really famous to be our executive producer, so it would be really influential today. Look, we should get Justin Bieber's mom. What's her name? And by the grace of God, you'll be seeing Patty Millette, the mother of Justin Bieber, came on board as our executive producer. And with Crescendo, our goal was to raise $10 million for pregnancy centers in a year. We came out on February 28th, and as of right now, we've raised over $5 million for CPC. So, wow. I want to tell you a little bit about Eduardo, because he's been such a blessing for me. You know, I met Eduardo in 2005. I was in Mexico City. I've been in the pro-life movement since I was 17, and I was in Mexico City running a political campaign. And Congressman Chris Smith's wife from New Jersey, Marie Smith, she said, Jason, you need to come. She called my hotel room. We've been in meetings all day. She goes, Jason, you need to come down here and meet this guy, Eduardo. I'm like, why do I have to come down there and meet some guy named Eduardo? She said, he's a telenovela star. What's a telenovela? She said, it's a Mexican soap opera. Like, I don't want to meet an American soap opera actor. Why would I want to meet a Mexican soap opera actor? She's like, he's so handsome. I don't care, really. She goes, he's really pro-life. So I came downstairs, and we were in front of the Four Seasons in Mexico City. And there was Eduardo. I come out, and there's Eduardo talking with the soccer player Pele, which was kind of strange. And so I joined the conversation. The three of us are talking about our faith and pro-life. And then Pele excused himself. And then it was just Eduardo and I were there talking. And Eduardo looked over my shoulder, and he had the look of horror in his eyes. And he said, run. And he starts running down the street. So now I'm chasing this telenovela star, running down the street. And I just saw the movie Man on Fire. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I was pretty certain I was about to be kidnapped. And so we're running down the street in Mexico City. He cuts down an alley. He cuts through a hotel. We're back on another street. He looks back. He's more horrified. And I finally muster up the courage to see what's going on. And I look. I turn around. And I see about 50 women running after us. You like how I said us? Yeah. And we hailed a cab. The cab slowed down. We jumped in the cab. We drove away. I've known this guy 10 minutes. We're out of breath. And I look at him and I say, I'm sorry, my friend, but if you want to hang out with me, get used to it. Every day is just like this. And we've been running together since to share our faith, to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, to share the gospel of life. But my journey in the pro-life movement began when I was a 16-year-old boy. It was 2 days before my 17th birthday. It was a Saturday. After a football game, I was a high school football player. I was kind of lying in bed, half awake, half asleep, sore, and I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Thought it was my sister, and the door opened, and someone sat in my bed, and I could tell they were crying, and I looked up, and it was my girlfriend, and she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I'm pregnant." So I sat straight up, and we spent that day in my room. Now, I'm from the south side of Chicago. This is 1988, so I had Walter Payton and Richard Dent and all the guys that beat on you guys for several seasons. This is a boys' room, and there I am with my girlfriend, and we had to come up with a plan. We had life plans. I was prepared to go to. I was a highly recruited football player, and I was looking forward to going to college, and she was looking forward to school, but we needed a new plan. And so we sat there that day, and this was our plan. On my birthday, I would drop out of high school and join the Army. And Katie, for her part, would wear baggy sweaters and take vitamins. And when I got back from basic training, she'd take off the sweaters, ta-da, and we'd live happily ever after. That was the plan. So on my birthday, I went down to the recruiter's office and said I'd like to join the Army, 17. He said, "Well, we don't just let any 17-year-old join the Army. You have to prove that you're a loser." It's easy. Out of 565 kids in my class, I was student 565. And I had about 80 hours of detention I accumulated over football season waiting for me at the other end of the season. So well, you need your mother and your principal to sign this piece of paper. My mother was a single mom with 5 kids, so she was very happy to sign that piece of paper. And my principal, I think she was even more happy. But so I signed the paperwork, and a few weeks after I turned 17, the recruiter called me up. He said, "I'm going to pick you up at 9 a.m. to take you to the airport. You need a suitcase with socks, underwear, toothpaste, toothbrush, and razor blade." I said, "Okay, I'll be waiting." And I went around my house, and I realized that we didn't own a suitcase. So I was panicked, and I called the recruiter. I said, "Sir, we don't own a suitcase. What should I do?" He said, "Use your pillowcase." Okay. I went upstairs. My pillowcase was still my Scooby-Doo pillowcase. Yeah, I went to my sister's room, strawberry shortcake. So I grabbed my Scooby-Doo pillowcase, started to put items in there, and I realized there's not a razor blade in the house because I don't shave yet. I have a pregnant girlfriend, I got a Scooby-Doo pillowcase, and I don't shave. So I called the recruiter and I said, "Sir, I don't shave. Do I need a razor blade?" He said, "You're going to have trouble in the military. You need to learn how to follow instructions." So I went down to 7-Eleven, bought a big razor that I wouldn't need for 6 months, and put it in my Scooby-Doo pillowcase, and off I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. So I got to Fort Benning. My high school girlfriend did what girlfriends do, and I know there's a lot of veterans in this room. She sent me a lot of letters, and with every letter you get, you have to do push-ups. And so sometimes 4, 5, 6 letters a day would come in. And the worst is she'd bake. She loved to bake, and she'd send me trays of brownies. The drill sergeants are very clever guys, and what they'll do is they say, "Private Jones, you have this box of brownies. So, UCMJ code requires me to allow you have to eat all of this. I can't prohibit you from getting your mail. So eat it, all of it now, and then run until you give it back." So I wrote, "Katie, please, not so many letters, and no more brownies." Now, I was raised an atheist. I didn't believe in God, and you can look at me and probably guess I have raging attention deficit disorder. My grandfather was actually a Scientologist, and every Christmas he would give me Dianetics. And every Christmas I'd get to page 3, they wouldn't let me take Ritalin, so I could never get past it. So I'd tell my grandfather, "It's your fault, I'm a Catholic today." But I would try to go to church one day on one Sunday, and it was just too much. I couldn't sit still for an hour. So I said to the drill sergeants, "I will do anything but go to church." And he said, "Well, you can have special detail every Sunday if you don't want to go to church." And I said, "Deal." And so I was the guy that was sort of the master of Sunday detail because I was there every Sunday. And I discovered that pots and pans was the worst duty station. Nobody wanted to clean these big pots and pans. But there was a freezer by that station where the drill sergeants would hide ice cream. And so what I would do is take buckets, fill it with ice, and then put the ice cream bars in the buckets, sneak them upstairs. When the soldiers came back from church, you shine my shoes for a week? Okay, ice cream bar. You polish my brass for a week? Okay, ice cream bar. So it's a great deal. I'd do extra duty one day, and I didn't have to make my bed, shine my shoes, press my BDUs, do my brass, so I loved it. So I was getting ready to graduate. I was in the infantry, so basic training and advanced training are together. So we're getting ready to graduate and come home. I only had 2 weeks left. And it was a Sunday. I was cleaning pots and pans, and a friend came running in. And he said, "Private, your girlfriend's on the phone, and you should come out and answer it. She's crying." So I ran out and I answered the phone. And Katie was crying like I have never heard a woman cry in my life. And the only way that I can explain it is that her soul was crying. And she kept saying over and over again, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It wasn't me." And then her father said over the other line, "Jason, we know your secret, and your secret's gone. I took Katie to get an abortion." Oh. As soon as he said the word abortion, a drill sergeant reached over my shoulder and hung up the phone. I wasn't supposed to be on the phone. I punched him. Another sergeant grabbed me by my collar. I was crying, yelling, "Call the police, he killed my baby." He threw me into my captain's office, and my captain was this very big Army Ranger, but just at the sight of me crying, he began to cry. And I said, "Sir, please call the police. My girlfriend's father killed my baby." And when I explained to him what happened, he looked confused. And he said, "Why would I call the police? Don't you know that abortion is legal?" And do you know I didn't? I was an E1 private, last in my class. I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know that killing a child in our country was legal, But I did know that human life began at its beginning, at fertilization. That was not above my pay grade. And I was a private in the Army making $300 a paycheck. But my captain explained to me, Roe v. Wade, I think he must have been pro-life or Christian, he was very empathetic, and he explained to me in a Cliff Notes how this is legal and how this could happen. And he gave me a roll of quarters, and he said, "I want you to go to the PX and call your girlfriend. I don't need you disturbing the whole battalion. And then come back when you're out of change." So I walked to the PX, and I remember it like it was yesterday. My heart was broken at the thought of my child being destroyed. I couldn't believe that this baby I was thinking about every day was gone. My heart was broken at the sound of my girlfriend crying and the fact that I couldn't be there to protect her. But what this high school dropout from Section 8 housing, raised by a single mom who was last in his class, could not comprehend, I couldn't believe that this was legal. I just couldn't believe it. And when I got to the PX, I put in a quarter and I called Katie, and we really didn't talk. I just listened as she cried through an entire roll of quarters. And when the mechanical voice said, "You're out of change, you're out of time, please deposit more change," and I didn't have any more change, and I didn't know what to say, I just blurted out, "Katie, I promise you, if it takes me the rest of my life, and if no one else in the world cares, I'm going to make sure that this is illegal." And the phone went dead. I'm a new Catholic, new Christian, and at Lent, every year I give up something, and 5 days later I just start feeling guilty for the rest of Lent because I can't keep my commitment. Anybody else do that? Raise your hand. The evangelicals are like, "I don't need to do that." Good for you. But by the grace of God, even though I was an atheist for my first 12 years in the pro-life movement, by the grace of God, I've tried my best to keep this promise. And I just didn't know. I just thought that nobody knew. Nobody knew abortion was legal. All I have to do is tell them, and they'll go, "What?" And then we'll say, "Yeah," and then we'll end it. And it's going to be simple. So I thought. So I get to my duty station. I'm a private in the Army, in the infantry. I'm stationed in Hawaii. My mother says my life is God consistently rewarding me for doing the wrong thing. So now I'm in Hawaii, 17, in the Army. And my mom would talk to anyone who knocks on her door. So when I was a boy, I would wake up to Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons in my house every Saturday. So being a smart aleck teenager, I would just come down to my tidy whities and make omelets, try to make them uncomfortable. But that taught me something. It taught me that you can knock on a stranger's door and they'll answer it. So in my off days, I would go to the plantation housing outside of Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, where the Filipino immigrants, who probably weren't even Americans, let alone registered to vote, lived. And I would knock on their door. And this was my line. Hi, can I talk to you, sir, about abortion? Bombay Holly Boy, what? Can I talk to you about abortion? Do you know abortion's legal? And sometimes they would pour me a Coors Light in a cup with ice cubes, like they do. And we would sit and we would talk. And then sometimes I'd say, I didn't know abortion was legal. I'd say, huh? And let's go door to door. Will you come with me next week? And I'd give them my phone number. And I'd get more guys going with me, Filipino guys going with me through plantation housing, telling people abortion's legal to plantation workers. And then one day I get a phone call at my duty station from this woman. She's so irate. And she said, are you Jason Jones? Yes, ma'am. You need to stop telling people you work for us. She said the name of her organization. I said, ma'am, I've never told anybody I work for you. She goes, well, yes, you have, because I got this number from someone, said you knocked at their door, you were talking to them about abortion. I said, oh, I talk about abortion to people door to door. What do you do? She said, we're Hawaii Right to Life. We fight abortion. She's very angry. Right to life. That's really clever. Like, we got a group? This is awesome. And, this is 1989. There was no Google. I went to the Post Library. There was like Roe v. Wade and Focus, like written by some propagandistic left-wing group. And that's all I had. That was all my information. So now I was off to the races. I was working with Right to Life and got involved in my local Republican Party. And then my captain called me in and he said, Private. Now, by the way, I was an atheist boy who liked girls and liked to drink and liked to fight. I had 5 Article 15s my first year for fighting. If you were never in the military, it's a bad thing to get an Article 15. If you get 3 in a career, you're gone. I had 5 in 1 year, and they didn't kick me out. And I liked girls, so I was always getting in trouble. My colonel called my captain once because I didn't realize it was his daughter I took on a date. And so I was a bad kid. And my captain called me in, knowing who I am, and said, Private, I've heard the craziest rumor about you. And I know it's not true, but you need to know what people are saying about you. I said, what's that, sir? Well, they're saying that, you go door to door talking to the Filipinos across the street on abortion. Like, yo, I do that, sir. Yeah, I do that. He's like, are you crazy? I said, no, I'm going to end abortion. He said, you're going to end abortion going door to door. I said, well, what should I do? So at West Point, they taught me if you have a goal, you need a plan. You start with your goal, you work your way back. If you have a big goal, you need a big plan. You start yourself with your goal, you work your way back. It's a pretty big goal. You need like 40 years. Write your goal and work your way back, step by step by step, to the high school dropout 17-year-old E2 private you are. And do that. And if you work that plan, I believe that you can end abortion. I want you to write a plan. So I went and wrote a plan. And he asked to see it. I gave it to him. He said, looks pretty good. Work the plan. In 2029, I'll be looking for you. And, by the grace of God, I've tried to work that plan more or less, changed a few things here, changed a few things there. In 1999, I had my first hiccup. I was graduated from the University of Hawaii, then I became director of Hawaii Right to Life, where I was also chief of staff for a state representative, had a radio show, and was chairman of the Young Republicans. And when Hawaii Right to Life said, we'd like you to be our executive director, and they were really nervous because I was an atheist and kind of a bad guy. They're like, there's Hawaii. It was like me and like one other 90-year-old lady, and they're like, well, we'll go with this guy. And then once I became executive director, I'm like, this is it. I'm going to end abortion in Hawaii like this year. And then they'll see me in D.C., they'll call me, how did you do that? I'll tell them, and I'll end it, and I'll still make the NFL. So I had this plan, and we're going to introduce third trimester abortion ban, and we're going to get it through committee, and then the representative who chaired that committee, she said, Jason, I'm not going to hear the bill. Okay. I went and got the college Republicans, and we canvassed her district, and we knocked on every door. We had her entire district sign my petition for her to hear the bill, including her children, her husband, her parents, her chief of staff. I came in with my petitions to Representative Susie Chun Oakland, and I said, Rep Oakland, look, you're going to hear my bill. And she didn't even turn over. Oh, Jason, how hard did you work on that? I'm never hearing that bill. And that really broke my heart. And I was devastated. And, you know, when I was chairman of the college Republicans in Hawaii, I learned that anyone I asked to speak for my club would come. But their schedule was they were only available in February. So February was a great speakers month for me in Hawaii. I had Oliver North come, Alan Keyes came, Charlton Heston, and then I'd get their phone number and I'd never leave them alone again. And so I called Alan Keyes, Dr. Alan Keyes, if you remember Ambassador Keyes. And I said, Dr. Keyes, I don't know, I'm wasting my life here. I can't even get third trimester abortions banned in Hawaii. And I'm doing everything possible. What should I do? And he said, you know, Jason, the darker the world becomes, the further your light will shine. Just pray. All right, Dr. Keyes, thanks for that. Who tells an atheist to pray to solve a problem? It's like, you know, a vegan says he has a headache. You don't say, eat a hamburger. But I was so mad at God. I was so angry at the universe or whatever, I said a prayer. And whenever I started hitting failures, I'd start saying this prayer. More of a taunt. It wasn't a prayer as much as a taunt. I'd say, God, if you exist, and I don't believe you're real, because if you were real, there wouldn't be children abused, there wouldn't be abortion, there wouldn't be all this nonsense. And I'm here, not a great guy. I'm fighting abortion with, you know, 5 ladies with blue hair. I can't end abortion. I need rich people, famous people, and powerful people. All powerful God, raise them up. Give them to me. Where are they? I'll work with them. We'll end abortion. Prove me you're real. And if I can map how I went from Hawaii in 1999 to where I'm standing before you today with what I've had the privilege to participate in, it does not make any sense. To run Senator Brownback's campaign for president, to producing Bella. In 2007, Eduardo and I were invited by the Pope to Rome to meet with the most powerful people in the world, to talk about how we're going to end abortion. And I looked around, I saw some of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the world. And I looked at them, and we had, and not just from the United States, like royalty and billionaires, and we had these, you know, earphones on and translators behind the glass. I was looking around the room. I heard God whisper in my ear. He said, "What do you need now, smart guy?" I like Justin Bieber's mom. You know? And that's when I realized that God has given us all of the grace that we need to end abortion. We have just failed to correspond our life to that grace. And, you know, when I was 17 and I promised Katie, I said, I'm going to end abortion for you. I'm going to do it. Me. I don't need anyone else. I'm going to do it. And now I know I can't end abortion on my own. But I really believe if just those of us in this room corresponded our life to God's grace, we would see an end to abortion in an instant. In 2008, I had another setback. I worked for Governor Brownback. He was running for president. We had Bella coming out when the primary was happening, so it was a very busy time. And then McCain won, and I was, you know, bitter and didn't want to be near that guy. So I'm like, I'm not helping him, whatever. And but then I started feeling really guilty as the primaries were over and the general was coming and a month left. So I said, I'm just going to go to Ohio. And I raised $1 million, and I went to Ohio, and I started a PAC called Just One Judge to focus on Ohio, telling folks we're just one judge away from overturning Roe. Let's vote for the candidate. I wouldn't even tell them who to vote for. Let's just vote for the candidate who you think is most likely to give us that judge. And my high school girlfriend called me on election day, and she said, Jason, today's the day. You're going to keep your promise. And I wasn't so optimistic. And she goes, I'm getting on a plane, and when the plane lands, I'm going to call you, and you can tell me the news. And I wasn't optimistic either way how the election went, but the plane landed, and the election results were in, and I had to tell her, we didn't win. So I went back to my hotel, devastated, and I was going to jump out the window, and I was on the second floor, and I thought that would just break my leg. So I rented a silly movie called Baby's Mama. No one's ever seen it because it's not good, but it was funny enough to distract me, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and I had a book in my bag that someone had given me called Memory and Identity, and it was the last book that Pope John Paul II wrote, recounting his struggles against the great ideologies of evil of his age. And he said that there were Nazism, communism, and the culture of death. He said of those three ideologies, the greatest evil is the culture of death. And this is coming from a man who a communist agent put a bullet in his body, and the Nazis trampled his country, killed his friends, and as then the communists did. But he said the ideology of evil that we're living under is the greatest ideology of evil. And that's what we're called to face. And as I read how he fought the ideologies of his age, the first thing, when the Nazis came in to Poland, they shut down and destroyed all this Polish and Christian art. And they were only pushing Nazi and German and this neo-pagan mythology. So what did this young man do, Karol Wojtyła, the future John Paul II? He was an actor. And with his friends, he put on plays that celebrated Christian and Polish culture. And I would say that today, I thank God that I'm in Hollywood because I see the same thing. The culture of death tries to dominate us through this dictatorship of the media, promoting a culture of death. Now, the people who are doing this are not conspirators. They are believers, true believers in this ideology. So what we need to do is not ask them to produce movies for us, but we need to do it. We need to take responsibility for creating the art that shares our culture. And the second thing is when the communists came in, he wrote, that I knew that it was only within the Catholic Church that Poland could survive communism. It was only by looking at Jesus Christ could Poland survive. And so he went through the church, and he worked, and he lived his apostolate as a priest through the church. And when I was an atheist in the pro-life movement, I would look at all the Christians at all these events, and I'd say, if these Christians would just get out of my way, I could end abortion. And especially those Catholics with those funny hats and the sword and that woman on the moon, they're creeping me out. And but now, I'm at 3rd degree Knights of Columbus, so I don't have a sword yet. That's coming. I got to wait till I'm 80, I think, to get the sword. You have to be old enough that they know you cannot hurt anybody. But now I understand that we're not fighting abortion. We're promoting the truth about the human person. That's our mission. Our mission is to communicate the incomparable worth and dignity and beauty of the human person. And that's what you do through your center. Not just through your words, but through your actions by loving and working with these young women, and often their boyfriends and fathers and husbands and sisters and siblings and all that come together with them in the most challenging and difficult time in their life. I became a father again at 18. And I remember as I was a young father at 18, I thought, okay, I'm going to have my son, but my life is over. It was the most horrifying experience. And then as soon as my son was born, it was like, what was I afraid of? But in that moment, you're so afraid. And that's what you're doing when you love them and work with them and honor them at that moment. But then we have an opportunity that Pope John Paul II and others didn't have. When God judges us, he's not going to judge us by the standards in which he judged people who lived under Soviet Union or under Nazism. He's going to judge us by the standards that he judged the pharaohs, kings, because we live in a constitutional republic, and we are the sovereigns. And each and every one of us are responsible for the laws of our land. Father Richard Newhouse said when he was a young liberal Lutheran minister in the 60s, the greatest tragedy in American political history is that the pro-life flag is being planted in the Republican Party. But I disagree with Father Newhouse. I believe that the greatest tragedy in American political history is that the pro-life flag is not firmly planted in both of our political parties. We have one party that puts it out every 2 to 4 years as a lawn ornament, and as soon as the election's over, hurries up to put it away. And another party to try to get near it with that flag, and you might get attacked by dogs or shot by a sniper. That's the sad truth. But if each and every one of us puts that flag of life in our party, we will see an end to abortion. I would never tell anyone which party to vote for, but I'm going to tell you this for me. I will never, ever, ever vote for anyone who denies the dignity of my daughter that I lost, Republican or Democrat. I don't care if they wear a star-spangled elephant, star-spangled donkey, I will never vote for you. And when those of us who are pro-life are consistent with that, we will see an end to abortion. Almost 4 years ago now, I run a nonprofit and we drill wells in Sudan. We work in the Nuba Mountains and in Darfur. And Eduardo, who's sort of the Brad Pitt of Latin America, he's a big star. For those of you who don't know him, he's a very big star in the Latino community. He was bugging me. He's like, Jason, I want to go with you to Sudan. I want to go with you to Sudan, and everyone wants to go until like a week before, and they don't want to go anymore. So I'm like, Eduardo doesn't really want to go, but you know, I said, sure, Eduardo, if you want to come with me on my next trip, you can. You know, you can't come the first 2 weeks, but you can come the second 2 weeks. Go to this airport, go to that airport, a little supply plane will fly you into Darfur, and we'll meet you. I never thought I'd see him, but as soon as I told him he could go, he started telling everybody. And so his manager called me furious. How dare you take Eduardo? Because, of course, if Eduardo dies, his manager doesn't get money. And then his agent, how dare you take Eduardo? But the worst was the women calling me, because Eduardo's single, because he's funny looking. This woman called me, and she kept calling me, harassing me. She wouldn't leave me alone. I was going to change my phone number, and she'd call me, and she'd say, how dare you take Eduardo? If you want to go and leave your wife and your 4 kids, 4 at the time, see, I'm Catholic, we keep going. Next year it'll be 8. Your wife and 4 kids, and your wife's pregnant. If you want to leave her a widow, if you want to die, that's your business, but how dare you take Eduardo? And I finally had to say to this woman, listen, Mom, Eduardo really wants to go. It's funny to you, it hurts. So anyway, and I said to Eduardo, I said, look, you might die, brother, but we could fundraise off you either way, live or die. And so you know, the plane lands, and we're wondering, is Eduardo going to be there? And sure enough, he walks off the supply plane. And the voice of the martyrs was bringing us supplies. And he just walks off the plane looking like a movie star. And he goes, okay, for out there, you need to fundraise off me. He gives me the camera, like General MacArthur. He gets back on the plane, and he gets off the plane again. He does and it was an incredible experience. You know, at one point, we were almost martyred, truthfully. We hired these Muslim people, bad guys kind of, you know, there's no black hats or white hats there, but we hired these guys, you think your contractors are bad, to drill wells for us, and haggled over the price. They didn't like we haggled too much, and they were going to kill us. And, you know, as a Catholic, I kind of got excited because I was like, I have my own prayer card. And then I looked at Eduardo and I was like, he's going to have his own prayer card. And they're just going to buy his. And no one's going to buy mine. And then I thought, whoa, no. See, I know how they do this when there's a group of people. They put the good-looking, you know, saint in the front. And it's like, you know, Eduardo and his companions. And they'll just be me. You won't even know it's me in the back. But we didn't die, so that was good. But the day before we were leaving, this group of children were following me, these boys. And they've been around us a lot. But this time they were very formal. And they're just walking. And the oldest boy stopped. They were like between the ages of 10 and 2. And the oldest boy stopped. And he was very serious. And he looked at me. He said, Mister, take me where you going? And I said, I'm going back to our camp. Do you want to come with us and play soccer? He goes, no, mister, take us where you going? I said, we're going to the camp. And he pointed at each of the boys. He said, mister, we are good boys. And we have no mom or dad. And he pointed at each kid, no mano dad, no mano dad, no mano dad, no mano dad. We are good boys, mister. take us to America. And it broke my heart because I knew that I couldn't take them. So we walked under this tree, and not all the boys spoke English. Most of them spoke Arabic. So Pastor Tito, who's a 6'7" evangelical Dinka warrior who preached like Billy Graham, looked like Billy Graham as much as a 6'7" Dinka could. And I said, Tito, can you just translate for me? And I said to the boys, I can't take you home with me. I wish I could. But my country would not let me, and it will not be fair to your country. Because I'm going to pray every night with my family that God raises you boys up, and that you boys become the founding fathers of a new, free Southern Sudan. Amen. And you know, my wife and I and my children started praying that every night. And 2 years later, by the grace of God, South Sudan became the first country since the reconquest of Spain to liberate themselves from the yoke of Islam. And these boys now live in Southern Sudan, where they go to a school, they're well fed, and they will be the founding fathers of a new, free Southern Sudan. And then when I was done praying with the boys, Pastor Tito prayed like an evangelical for like an hour and a half. He's Catholic. I'm like, come on, we gotta go play soccer. And we walked back with the boys. But I knew from that day, from once we prayed, I felt better. Because I believed that God would raise these boys up. As you believe that, right? And now we can see it. I can see it when I work with them. But those boys were illiterate, orphans, who lived in the poorest country in the world. But yet you knew God could answer that prayer. So when we as Christians in the United States of America seem overwhelmed by the odds we're facing, it's foolish. Because the odds that we're facing are very small. Very small. God has given us all of the natural resources we need, the education, the financial resources, everything we need, we have. And He's given us all the grace we need. And I truly believe that if just those of us in this room corresponded our life to God's grace, that we would see in the very instant the end of the abortion culture. By being here, you show your commitment. And I cannot thank you, because as a 17-year-old, if my high school girlfriend would have come to your center, I would still have my baby, because the reason the abortion happened was she asked her father's friend, who was a nurse, to give her a prescription for prenatal vitamins because she thought she was farther along in the pregnancy. She needed prenatal vitamins, and that's how her dad found out. So that is why I have such a passion and a love for the work that you do. And I would ask that everyone here today support this center to the best of your ability, because in these hard economic times, nobody is having it harder than the clients that you serve. Thank you very much. God bless you. And if anyone here has any spam memorabilia somehow on you, or Malta meal, I'll take it. Bring it home. God bless you guys.